Hey everyone, my name is Ted Tessman, and this video is on how I drive and approach the track. So I'm going to try and explain my thought process and what I'm doing to make a perfect lap every time. So I'm going to go through a complete lap on our track and try to explain what exactly I'm doing in each section and break it down to explaining how I'm braking, how I'm getting on the throttle, and every little bit of each section to try and explain it the best I can. So let's get started and hit the track. We're going to start with the first section. Is the 3-roller section, followed by a right-hand turn with a double that's quite difficult to make because the landing is so short coming into the next right-hand turn. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit the first roller with a lot of throttle, trying to jump as far as I can and land on throttle again to keep the nose up and to keep my momentum to the next 2 rollers. And I'm going to repeat that on the second roller, trying to keep the front end up and my momentum up all the way to the third one. And I'm going to keep on the outside of this to try and apex and cut in tight on the corner, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to try to set up on here in the last roller. I'm going to let off just before it and kind of let my momentum carry me over the roller. And based on past experience of this jump that's coming up here, I know that the middle to outside doesn't throw me high enough and I have to hit it really fast, and then trying to stop on the landing or land without blowing the next corner is very difficult. So I'm going to cut in and hit the inside of the jump where I get more pop and I can land the downside easier with less speed. Another reason why I'm staying tight here exiting this corner is because of the holes leading up to the jump. They can make acceleration very difficult, and then you don't really have much control coming out of the corner. And then when I land my car, I'm going to land a little bit nose down and then hit the brakes as soon as I land to get a little bit of the front end to dig in and stop quicker and tighter on the landing. So as you can see in this freeze frame now that my car is leaning, it has a lot of force on the outside left tire especially, so it's getting a lot of braking power and stopping power, so I can be tight and slow in the next corner. I want to try and slow right down in this corner because there's holes right to the left of my car there I want to avoid. And this is one of those sections that slow is fast, so making a slow straighter line is definitely faster than going wide and hitting the bumps and getting your car upset. So you want to make sure this is nice. You can take your time in here and it'll pay off exiting the corner. Now coming up to this section, I'm going to charge hard all the way to the jump. This jump's a flat landing jump and it's a crossover, so I'm going to charge up to it hard and then let off just at the face of it and let my momentum carry me over the jump. And that's going to allow the car to stay lower and I can hit the jump faster and not over jump the landing. This isn't always the case. Sometimes you want to have your car jump further or higher, and then I'll be on throttle hitting the jump and my car will get more pop off the jump because it'll tighten the driveline up and actually give me more lift once I hit the face of the jump. But in this case I want to stay low, so I'm going to charge up to it hard so I don't lose any time getting to the jump, and then I can let off and let the chassis scrub on the face of the jump and I'll jump lower and not as far. Another thing I do to help the car land off a flat landing jump is use the throttle to catch the car. And similar to the takeoff of the jumps when I explained the amount of power you need to help preload the suspension or not, you can use the same method to land the car. Whereas if you land a car with no throttle, it's just going to use the suspension capabilities and it could sometimes slap or bounce. But if you land on throttle, the driveline tightens up and helps stiffen the suspension and catch the car better. You'll notice my car's flying a little nose down, and then just before the landing, I get on the throttle to land back wheels first, and that catches the car and pushes it forward as well as landing without bouncing. So this jump is a flat landing jump, so there's no particular landing I have to hit, but there is a corner coming right after it that I don't want to jump too far into. I want to be able to have some time for my car to settle and so I can hit the corner properly to come out faster. And these berms, there's not always one line to take the berm. There's sometimes you need to take the berm high, sometimes you need to take the berm low. In this case, I take it high and I use the berm because I'm coming at it at such a high speed off the crossover jump. I want to use my momentum to carry around and to slingshot out of the corner and head out of the corner fast. It also is grip dependent. If it's a really high bite track, you sometimes won't use the berm because you have enough traction to stop and turn and get back going again. If the grip is low, you tend to use the berms more often. Also, if there's a jump right after the corner, right after the berm corner, you're going to want to use the berm. Maybe if the jump's hard to make, or if you want to make an extra long jump like a triple or something like that, you might want to use the berm to get more speed coming out and kind of a slingshot move. So it's not always just one kind of approach to these berm turns. You kind of have to see what's coming before and after them. Another reason why I want to use the berm in this corner is because there's this fast straight section coming out of it, and I want to exit the corner on the right hand side of the lane so I can set up better for the corner coming next. And now once I've hit the apex of the corner, I want to stay somewhere in the middle of the lane so I can set up for the next section after this straight stretch. For this corner, I'm going to keep my momentum and power on, and it's going to keep the car more stable than if I were to slow down more and decelerate and then accelerate back again. So keeping the throttle on while you're going through corners like this can really help keep the car stable, especially if there's a little bit of ruts or bumps to drive through. The car driving on power with the centrifugal force of the tires will keep the car upright, at least have a better chance of keeping it upright than if you're on the brakes or just coasting. So I'm going to be on the throttle hard here and then try to miss the bump that my car goes over right there, and just wait till I'm past that bump to start braking, or I'm going to go head over heels and into the weeds. So you want to kind of, when you're driving around tracks and you have a bump, usually bumps develop where you're braking because that's where the cars kind of, the bumpers dig in and stuff happens. So it's quite common to have bumps where you end up braking at the end of the straightaway. So being able to know where they are and avoid them, or brake before or after them. Okay, so for this section, you're coming hard out of the straight section we just talked about, and I'm going to be applying the brakes, and this section here is not a typical apex. I'm going to kind of enter just left off center of the lane, and I'm going to hit the brakes and try not to get the car upset, so I'm going to just apply the brakes nice and smooth, but still try to get to the corner as fast as possible. So I'm going to enter a little bit wide and then cut in really tight where the jump has the best lift. This jump, it has right in the middle, you don't get really high enough, you have to hit it a lot harder. So I'm going to use the inside where I can hit it a little slower, get enough height. So now that I've made it over the first jump, I kind of land in the middle of the lane, and that's where I'm going to take off from the next jump. Because the jump face all the way across is pretty good, it's not really, it doesn't really kick your car any different side to side. So I'm going to use the middle of the lane and then try to land near the inside of the landing to set up for the third jump. So as you can see here, I'm landing using a little bit of wheel input in the air just to kind of set my car up for the next jump because this is a curving section. So I'm going to turn a little bit of left lock to get the car to lean towards the driver's side high, and then turn back just before I hit the ground, and that'll turn my car just slightly to set me up for the next jump. I'm going to land on the inside, and then I'll be set up better for the second jump where I'm going to hit the face on the inside, and that's just because the next corner, the jump really across the face is not much different again. I'm going to use the inside because it's going to set me up so I can get down the next section better. For this jump, I also don't need a lot of wheel input. I just kind of hit it straight. I will correct if I need to, if something happens, like if I'm not quite in the right position, I'll use the wheel input, but ideally this jump doesn't really need it. And when I land this jump, I'm going to land somewhat on the throttle, but make sure again you don't get to where you're too early on the throttle and you land too much on the back tires. This section, because you have a good downside, I want to kind of land front wheels first and then use my power to kind of suck the car down with hitting the front wheels first on throttle, and then it'll kind of slap the back end into the ground and then go straight forward rather than bouncing, or maybe if the back wheels touch first you'll be kind of out of control. So I'm going to use the downside of this jump because it has a really good downside, and it'll kind of slingshot me into the next straightaway. So I'm at full throttle here, and this corner coming up, there's bumps in it, so I have to be mindful of that and remember where they are from past laps, because it's very hard to see from the driver's stand where these bumps are. So coming into this corner, I'm going to let off the throttle just a little bit so that the ride height can get back to level, and the car is going to go through these bumps a little better than if I was on the brakes front end digging in. So I'm just going to let off and let it coast around here and then get back on it a little bit once I'm past the corner. I'm going to avoid these bumps because you don't want, obviously, you want to drive in the smoothest spot of the track. So it's going to be at the tight line here. It's not going to be the perfect apex. But again, in off-road, it's not necessarily the perfect apex that is going to be the fastest. It's staying on your wheels and going the smooth part of the track. So you can see I'm turning in here already. I'm trying to avoid the bumps that are coming up. This is a berm corner, so when the layout was fresh, we used the berm actually to slingshot around again, and it was quite a bit faster because you could come in the corner quite a bit harder and just rail the berm. But since the bumps developed, we had to change our line and go tighter and slower. It looks slower, but it's faster now because you're avoiding bumps and taking the smoothest route. So also because this is one of the corners of the track, it's harder to see your car, so it's better to be off the pipe a little bit. You don't want to be too close because judging distance is kind of difficult, and it's better to be like a foot off the pipe and not snag the pipe than to try to be too tight and make a mistake by hitting the pipe. So now that I'm past the corner, I can get on the gas hard again. This straight section in particular is a little bit tricky. As you can see, the line is pretty straight where it's light there, but the pipe kind of juts out, so if you're not careful, you'll think you're going along the pipe, and then all of a sudden the pipe jumps out at you, so you have to kind of go to where you think you're more in the middle of the lane, and you'll actually be right against that pipe where it juts out. So once I'm past the hump, I'll let my car settle back down, and there's not a lot of room to brake, but I'll hit the brakes pretty hard for just a second just to get my car speed to slow down, and then I'm going to let off and then turn. This jump also is very important to hit straight because it's again a little bit deceiving and your car disappears right when it hits the face of the jump. So you want to make sure you set up for the jump while you can still see your car before you hit the jump. So taking your time here and making a very square corner is very beneficial. As you can see on the face of the jump, there is a hole too. So trying to jump within that, inside of it, is ideal. And if you can't do that, the outside will work. The jump also doesn't need a lot of speed to get over it. You just need to make sure you're straight because the landing is into another little mini straight section where you want to be able to get on the throttle as soon as you land and not have to correct or bounce off the pipe when you land. As you can see, I took the outside of that hole. It's not ideal, but for this instance, how I came in, it wasn't perfect, so I chose the outside of the line to miss the bump. This is the landing that is ideal to land perfect, just off the inside of center, so the right side of center, and you can get on the power immediately when you touch the ground rather than having to steer in away from the pipe or back into the lane. If you can get this perfect, you can really make up time here. It is a short section, but little squirts of power where you can get down is going to make up time, so every little bit counts. This next corner coming up has a hump just before it, so I'm going to brake on the face of the hump this time so that I can use some of the force that's pushing the car into the ground from going up the hump to stop my car faster. But be careful to let off the brakes before your car goes over the hump, or else if you get airborne a little bit, your car is going to want to tip over the front, or if you try to turn too early, you're going to end up flipping over because your wheels will be turned when you hit the ground. So for this corner, I want to enter in the middle of the lane, and then I can come tight right in the middle of the corner where the pipe sticks out. And because it's right in front of the driver's stand, I have a really good view of it, and I can be a lot tighter here and be more confident where my car is going to be than say at the back of the track or in a corner of the track where it's a little bit less visible. And I'm going to get on the throttle quite hard here, even though it's a short shoot. I'm going to get on hard for just a second. So I'm going to get on the brakes really hard, and then the next corner I'm going to want to be tight because there's a hole there that, depending on the time of day, it might show a shadow or not, but I have to again remember lap to lap it's there, even if I can't see it necessarily at the time I'm going through it. And then because my car missed that hole, I'm going to be able to get on the gas again harder coming out of the corner and have more control in the next section with those rolling jumps. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of insight into what is going on in my head while I'm going around the track, and maybe even you can apply some of it to your own driving. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video. See you next time.